That was good. Um, and this is a smart decision by you to chase this Leona. You probably could have gotten. You probably could have just taken that kill there. Like I would take every kill I could get on Vayne, just because Vayne scales so hard with gold and items. Um, the one thing personally that I don't really like about Vayne, especially in this current meta, is Vayne doesn't take towers that fast if you go Blade of the Ruin King. And right now the ability, like if you were Jinxed right here, and you're gonna get this tower no matter what, but if you were Jinxed right here, or Vayne, or not Vayne, someone other than Vayne, or Vayne with a Bloodthirster, you would have gotten that tower a lot faster, and you could have quickly gone through that tower and possibly put some damage on this tower. And that's my only knock against Vayne. Vayne is good because the snowballing changes let her basically, like, hold on, I think I watch this. Okay, so you do a good job in this fight of staying on the back line and autoing a priority. You did an excellent job there. You were staying on the back line out of range of most of their stuff, and you were also autoing a priority target. The problem here is not you did nothing wrong. Your team is just not tanking enough because they have such a gold lead, and they have a gold lead translated into items, which means that you'll probably invariably lose this fight. But you played very well in that you were autoing the Caitlyn, who shouldn't have been right there. That was a grievous mistake. She should have been behind her team. But in that you were autoing the Caitlyn and that you were behind your team, you did an excellent job. Yeah, and right there, you're almost definitely doomed to death. And I think the flash that you had on that fight was pretty necessary to avoid getting hit by something. I forget what, but the flash you had in the fight was necessary. So at that point, because your team lost the fight because they're behind in gold, like you're basically doomed to death. I wouldn't have even at that point. I probably wouldn't have even burned cleanse to get out. Like, so there's certain times on an AD carry where you just have to accept your fate and not burn summoners that are going to be valuable later in a real team fight. Just because it like I think summoners are the most important. It's most important for an AD carry to save their summoners versus most other people. Like, it's important to save your summoners, but it's most important for an AD carry to save your summoners because you not dying in a fight means a ton more damage that your team has. And unfortunately, your team hasn't really performed particularly well. And I know it's like it's just people say to blame like individual play, like if you're not winning, you're not carrying hard enough. But like you can't stop your team from feeding the AP Psy on top, and you can't stop your team from not pressuring objectives properly and getting caught out. So at a certain point, you've done a good job of keeping up in farm and not getting denied, and just doing damage. And this is a smart decision to go farm a wave that you can be farming. Yeah, and since Nocturne doesn't have his Feral Flare yet, I would avoid taking his jungle camps if he's going for them too. Just because the jungler getting his Feral Flare is a little bit more important than an extra 60 gold or whatever. Oh, and right there you should have gotten all those creeps before starting your back. But definitely it's a smart decision to back right there. Just to group, because you guys have the potential to win a team fight directly under your tower, and some Vaynes would like to split push there, but you take towers so slowly as Vayne, it's more important for you to be in a place where you can team fight, and split pushing is a little bit less important until later. Also, your Morgana just fucked up. Your Morgana just messed up. That was pretty bad. You should try to get at this point you should try to get a trinket ward right here, just to have vision of where you could be engaged upon. And also, you shouldn't have been close enough to the Scion for him to do that, but it was kind of a dumb decision on their part. Yeah. Okay, so you played that pretty well. Up until the point where you were close enough to Orianna to get ulted, and so when you were autoing the Scion, I'm afraid to go back because it usually breaks law replay. you should have been kiting backwards and staying at the max of your auto range, like the maximum auto range you could be autoing him from. Because that way when you see Orianna running up there, there's no chance of you getting ulted by the Orianna. Like, you stay out of... And if you had stayed alive and not gotten ulted by the Orianna, then you wouldn't have died. And then you could have been doing damage to this Vi who's for some reason diving you alone, or diving the Yasuo alone. That was a good flash by the Yasuo, and that's going to be a dead Vi, and it should be a dead Caitlyn too. Your Nocturne should have spell shielded that trap there, but overall that was a good job. Good job by the Nocturne. And you played that fight exceptionally up until the point where you were close enough to Orianna to get ulted. Like, just be aware. One thing you can do is if you bind... I'm pretty sure it's like... If you bind... I wonder if I can do this in here. Time shift. Interface. Game? No, I can't do this in here. But if you bind your attack move, it's like attack range or show attack range or something. If you bind that to a key close to your QWER, you can be pressing that key to show you what your maximum attack range is, what your maximum auto range is, and then just stay on the outside of that bubble. Like, be autoing people in fights and be autoing creeps in lane as far away as you can be. Especially as someone like Vayne, who doesn't have a lot of wave clear and generally in a lot of range and generally gets poked a lot in lane. Like, there's a huge benefit to knowing what your maximum auto range is and staying at the very, very edge of that bubble in team fights and in lane. But again, you're playing exceptionally well given the fact that you're I forget who your top laner was. It must have been Kale, right? Or Yasuo. Whichever one of them managed to feed the AP Psy on top. Like, that just shouldn't happen, and that makes it very hard for you. Even though you have cleanse, it makes things very hard for you. But you're playing this exceptionally well. One thing you can be aware of right here is that no one on their team has built really much armor except for the Vi. So, after your yeah, okay, you did it. Never mind. After your Phantom Dancer, you might be able to get away with going eye edge instead of yeah, that was a little over aggressive, I think. Just I mean, you could have gotten a kill there, but you were basically guaranteed a death too, since you were diving Orianna and a Vayne and an Orianna and a Caitlyn. Because once you get hit by tower range, there's no opportunity for you to invis or cloak, because you're in tower range and you're pretty squishy still, so you're not going to be lifestealing enough to kill either of those targets. So you should have just probably backed off and not burned any summoners when you saw them burn summoners, because that's a win. And like you'd be getting more gold out of having not died and being able to go farm and leave with them having burnt summoners than you would have by dying. So that was just a little over aggressive. The mechanics were good though. Like, you flashed over the Orianna ball, which was really good, and that was impressive to me. So the execution of it was good, just the idea of it was not. Yeah, that was impressive, damn. But yeah, like, if you hadn't died there, you would be alive and able to stop them from that's pretty funny. He shouldn't have done that, probably. He should have just given up that tower. Maybe. Actually, I don't know, that was pretty smart by the Nocturne to stop them from pushing for longer. But yeah, if you hadn't died there, you wouldn't have had to give up that tower. And right here, there's a limited chance of catching either of those people, especially Vi. So just recognize the fact that the person that's going to be easiest to chase is the Scion. And if you had gone with the Kayle, you may have been able to help her out. But it looks like she got her anyway. Also, right now, your team should recognize the fact that they have 42 seconds on the Scion. This is just a general game knowledge thing. Since you're Vayne and you have the ability to take big objectives like Baron and Dragon fast, your team should recognize the fact that they have 42 seconds on Scion, who has a lot of their gold, and 17 seconds on the Caitlyn. And you should be telling your Nocturne right now to buy home guards and get to Baron with a sweeper as fast as he possibly can, because you guys have the opportunity to either A, do Baron and get it for free because it's going to be a 4v5, or B, bait them into a really unfavorable fight because the person with a lot of their gold outside of the Caitlyn is dead, and that's also a big source of their magic damage, so they're not going to be doing a lot of magic damage to you in the Baron pit with the Baron buff on them. So just be aware that there's objectives to take on the map and what their death timers are, and you can make calls like that. Like, even though they're pretty far ahead, a lot of that gold is on the Scion, and since he's dead and not going to be up for a Baron fight, if your Nocturne had gotten home guards here and not sat at base, doing whatever, if your Nocturne had gotten home guards there, it would have been really beneficial. Like, I get that taking this tower is probably something that you can maybe do at this point, but that was a good job of tumbling out, but you probably should have tumbled as soon as you saw the ball flying. But, like, Vayne does very limited damage to towers, and she does a lot of damage to objectives, so if you have the opportunity to right there to take an objective or do damage on a tower, take the objectives, because, like, my theory on that is that more often than not, it'll hold true that towers are going to remain up when you have advantage, and you can go take them later, but objectives like Baron, if you had gotten that there, it would have given you an immediate advantage, and you could have just gone and taken the tower later after you'd grouped with the advantage you'd gained from Baron. Right here, you should not be this close. Like, you should have recognized that the Scion has Moby boots, and that he's gonna that he has the ability to kill you. Right there, I mean, there's really not a whole lot you can do at that point, because he's just gonna run after you and kill you. And since you have no support from your team, because they're all fucking around down here, diving for some reason, diving 2 towers from some reason, which they shouldn't be doing. That's on them. And that's on them. But right there, you shouldn't be alone in vision range of the Scion with Moby boots, because he's just gonna, with his spooky ghost too, because he's just gonna run at you and he's gonna try to kill you. But specifically right here, what you maybe could have done is, after you had ulted, tumbled left and then condemned him into here, or if he had gotten in front of this tower, condemned him into the tower, because that maybe would have gotten you away. But basically, I mean, you managed to bait the Scion into an unfavorable little situation with the Kayle, but if you had been far enough back and he had chased you, then you would have been able to not get ran at by him, and your Kayle shouldn't be fighting this. Oh, yeah, no, your Kayle shouldn't be fighting this. Well, okay, I guess I'm wrong. But it's still not worth, because the Leona, or the Scion gets an assist, and the Leona gets a kill, and the Kayle doesn't get, she only gets the gold from a kill. So net gain, like, that was a good win ball by the Yasuo to make up for his mistake of walking too close. Damn. Yeah, so that's basically it. Just stay out of give people who have the ability to run at you and burst you like a giant wide berth, just because it'll save you some trouble as a squishy AD carry. It is smart by you to take red buff here. Red buff is a lot more beneficial on you at this point than it is the Nocturne, especially since you're now the same level as the Nocturne. Like, if you're ever the same level as your jungler, he should be giving you buffs, like buffs that you need, because you're gonna inherently do more with it than he is. And the fact that you're that high of a level is a testament to the fact that you've been playing this game pretty well. Like, right there, you probably shouldn't have been close enough to that Scion for him to do anything. Because yeah, that's a smart dive. One thing that you have vision of the Vi, but recognize the fact that she's not necessarily going to go at you, and also that Leona isn't someone that you really need to be zoned by. Like, doing damage to Leona, who's building full tank, isn't really necessary, because she's building full tank, and that just takes a long time to get through that. And then also, if you hadn't have stepped so far back here, you could potentially be with your ult, or having your ult, and you could be over here doing damage to their frontliners, which, like, you don't need to get zoned by Leona at this point because she just does nothing. But it was a good job of continuing to chase the kill right here. You should have just switched targets onto the Leona because you could have gotten a double.